night, I watched the president's State of the Union address to the country. And what I noticed was a president who uh, obviously was disappointed in the election results last November. In some instances, he learned a lesson from that election. In other instances, he did not. First of all, I was pleased to hear that the president finally called for lowering the corporate tax rate in this country. I believe that that is crucial if we want to be competitive with Asia. I also applaud the president for supporting free trade, at least in his speech. Though, let's be honest here, he has been reluctant to support a free trade agreement with Colombia in the past, even though he voiced support for that in the State of the Union. Free trade is something I hope he follows through on. Um, but I also had a lot of problems with what the president said during his State of the Union address. First of all, he brought up the issue of education. No Child Left Behind. Let me explain this. First of all, ideally, we should eliminate the Federal Department of Education. That would be in an ideal world. Because let's face it, the public education system of this country has not worked for millions of kids, especially those in failing schools. But what No Child Left Behind has managed to do is it gave the federal government a standard of which to measure states. States now have certain standards for school districts to meet, and those states have to meet a certain standard to the federal government. Schools that are failing in these standards give students the option to go to a different school. Now, No Child Left Behind is far from perfect. It has some flaws. But it is abundantly clear that test scores have gone up, especially, most notably for 9 and 13-year-olds in English and math. Test scores under No Child Left Behind have increased. And to eliminate No Child Left Behind, I fear, would hurt those in failing school districts, especially the poor and minority children. Both for whites and for minority children, test scores have increased under No Child Left Behind. So, if we're going to reform education, it should be to eliminate the federal Department of Education and return that power back to the states. It should not be, but if we're going to have a federal Department of Education, No Child Left Behind is the best answer, frankly, to the public school system in this country because it has made a difference in the lives of the poor and those who are disadvantaged from an economic standpoint. This president's viewed that repealing it would be in the best interest of the country is a notion that is frankly absurd. The race to the top that the president mentioned on education is simply throwing money at a problem. We need to return more power back to the states and more choice back to parents. We need to end tenure once and for all. But eliminating No Child Left Behind and replacing it with more money thrown at a problem is not going to be the answer to the education problems that we face. The president also said that he wants to invest more in energy and uh, high-speed rails. Now, I don't have anything against high-speed rails, but we have the largest deficit in history, and our deficits are becoming unsustainable. In fact, they are already unsustainable. If we had a budget surplus, and this would really create jobs in a time of economic distress, long term, if this would create jobs during economic distress, then yes, sure, we should pass laws that build high speed rails. But right now, we have seen the failed effects of stimulus spending, which have they create temporary government jobs that don't contribute to long term economic growth and, frankly, in some cases, short term economic growth. So I would hope that the president would take a step back and take a look at Americans, how Americans have embraced the automobile over rail. Now, personally, I would love to be able to go across this country on high-speed rails, but I don't believe that we are in a time in which that is possible, based on the fact that Americans have embraced the automobile and that we can't afford high-speed rail. Now, this administration, to its credit, has done some things on energy policy that make sense. Now, let's have some truth here. Most of the or many of the policies put forward on energy that have caused this research into alternate energy were pushed by the Bush administration and not the Obama administration. But the Obama administration has contributed some to the energy policy that we have now. What this administration is proposing is more spending, and that is not right. We can't afford it, and frankly, it's unnecessary spending. Now, one thing that got me, probably that stuck out the most to me, aside from the fact that this president wants to increase spending, also that he wants to raise taxes on oil. Now, the president made a smart political move by attacking the oil companies, but what he doesn't realize is that when he raises taxes on oil, it gets passed on to the consumers. So people who are commuting, those who are retired and trying to, travel somewhere, it is not good for them because it raises the cost of gasoline in this country, which hurts every single person that owns a car in this country. It hurts the automobile manufacturers. It hurts the tourism industry, and it hurts those who work for the oil companies as well. The tax subsidies are not these big evil things. What's evil is that we have an administration that does not want to drill offshore and even inland where it's appropriate. Because, frankly, the way to lower our dependence on foreign oil is not by taxing oil companies here at home. The president proposed consolidating certain departments of government. I am happy to hear that he supports doing such something that I believe is fiscally responsible. But I don't think that we need more spending. And the cuts, the president says on one hand he wants to cut spending, on the other hand he wants to increase deficit spending. You can't have it both ways. What we need here is we need a combination of tax cuts to promote economic growth and spending restraint to get our deficit under control and to stop spending and borrowing. Also, one last point I'd like to make is the president said that he is not willing to renegotiate the part of the health care bill that says that people with pre-existing conditions should not be covered. It is now law that those with pre-existing conditions must be covered under the president's health care plan. And look, Majority Leader Eric Cantor has stated that is something that is bipartisan and both parties, for the most part, will support. But I wish that the president would say, look, the mandates that he proposed are going to raise the cost of health care. They're going to raise the cost of doing business in this country. And we need a free market approach that lowers costs. I don't know all the answers with regards to health care. I believe that nobody liked the status quo before the president's bill became law. But I think that people have objected to the president's bill more than they have what was going on before the president's bill. We need a new direction on health care. There's no doubt about that. And it has to be an approach that lowers costs and does not raise the cost of doing business and raise premiums on those who have health care now, and certainly not a plan that cuts Medicare on our seniors. I also watched the Tea Party response of Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. I agree with many of the points that she made. I can't say I totally, it was mainly just common sense, in my opinion, most of it. And I did not get to see Paul Ryan's response. Unfortunately, I have not been able to see that yet. I will in due time. I know that he's a very smart individual. I know that he understands what needs to be changed. And he understands fiscal discipline. And he understands common sense. So, look, I am optimistic in certain areas. But I must say that after that State of the Union address, I was more pessimistic than optimistic. I hope that I'm proven wrong.